Time. Welcome to session 6AE, building a modern app with Python and I can't remember what that acronym is, Z Open Automation Utilities. Over to you, Bill.
Thanks, Stuart. So let's get started. Hey guys, I'm Bill, and I have been a Zio assistant programmer for the last 10 years, something around that, working with mainframe here in IBM Brazil, Poland, and most of my knowledge is on the sysadmin area, so assistant programmer. But I have been always passionate about new techs and DevOps automation, and this is why I usually look for things like learning and developing automation with Python, Node.js. So these are things that I really like. So currently, if you notice, I have two sessions on this edition of TSE, and I'm in two different time zones. So today I'm talking from Brazil, and I'm moving to Netherlands on the next session. So let's get it started. Before we enter here on the session, so the GSE UK team hope that you find this presentation and others useful. And if you want, kindly donating to some church, Zero Royal National Lifeboat Institution and Guide Dogs for the Blind are the ones that you're supporting here on this GSE. So what we are going to talk here on this session. So here we are going to see the Fox is having at the end an app. So in fact, it's on the back end, so it's an API. And to get there, we are going to talk a bit about Python, understand what is that, what is the open automation utilities, so what is involved in this API, what we are going to achieve, and there's a bit of coding also. So this is the plan for today. Please, if you'd like to ask any questions, do that, and we're gonna try to take that at the end. So what is Python? Some definition, it's not the snakes. So we are talking here about the world's fastest growing programming language. And I believe part of the reason for that is that because it's not just popular between developers, but it's something that's becoming every time more popular between data analysis because it's being used for machine learning, for web apps, automation. I guess most of its use maybe inside of the automation area. So, and in fact, one of the reasons I started to learn Python was because of Ansible, and we use Python on that. So, just for us to understand why it becomes so popular, why it's easy for someone that would like to take some boring activities and use Python to automate that. One of the reasons is the simplicity. Here there are some comparisons, so we can look how for example we would take the first three characters if we would be using C# or JavaScript, and in the last example in Python. And another example is how we would be doing a GET request, an HTTP request using Python. In fact, using one of the modules that are available requests, for example, to get information from an API. So we are taking some information from an API. So if these two lines would be doing this simple activity. And if we are talking about other language that, for example, Rex, I just wrote here the example in Hex. So, and in fact, there's just some snippets here, but we would need some hundreds of lines to do the same thing. So really simple to get something done with that. And I think this is the most reason that it's, it's making Python so popular. If you would like to have some look more on this code to get this HTTP request, there is the link here, so where you can get the sample that I have added to this slide. But not just that. So there are some other reasons regarding why it's becoming popular and why popularity. So it's a high-level language. It's something that is close to the human language. It's cross-platform, so we take the same code, we take the same language. We have it on Windows, on Mac, if you are on Linux, and now some on ZOS. There is a huge community. So if you are looking to learn, it's easy. If you are looking to ask a question for someone, or I don't know if you all here have heard about the Stack Overflow already, but so it's like a forum where you find questions from other developers. So almost everything that you can find there, how to do something. So the community is also really interesting on Python. So there is already a large ecosystem. So for example, that we saw before, the request. So there is already someone that have written a code and has shared that. So you can use there are some repositories you can just use to take some of these modules to use on your code, so you don't have to reinvent the wheel. You can just make advantage of that and just focus on what is really important for what you are developing. So this is some reasons that favor for that. But Python on ZOS, the Python on ZOS, it's kind of new. I think it's from last year. I think IBM started to support that, and Porter has its own version, so it's very up to date. The IBM Open Enterprise Python is on version 3.9, so it's the same version that we have for any other platform. You have access to PyPy, that's where you can take these modules to use on your code. And in the past, I remember when I started using that, there were some modules that are kind of famous. For example, Panda, that is something that you use to work with data. And that was not, in the beginning, that was not, there were some issues when we were running that on QS, but we have all that supported now and working fine. And there are some requirements when we want to use Python on ZOS. So, for example, for hardware, if you would like to use, you need to have from Enterprise class 12 or is it 13, 14, 15. And for software, you need to be above QS 2.3. So before that, these are the requirements you need. If you want to know more about that, there is also here the link where you can find this documentation. And from the link, you're gonna be also linked to where you can download Python. So if you are willing to use that on your LPAR, it's kind of simple for you to install. Basically, you can do what the most basic installation. What you need is just download what have there, so the PAX files, and exploit that on your USS. And you need to tell the system where to find these binaries that you just brought to your system. So you have to point the path, the lead path where these binaries are, and also have this other environment and conversion variable setup. So with that, you are good to start using Python on your LPAR, on your ZOS. And there is another product that we are going to use here, and it's kind of a framework. It's kind of it's a tool. So the Open Automation Utilities that let developers, let system programmers, let we interact with the system from the USS, like a command language interface inside of USS. So you can we're gonna see that there are numerous functions available for you to access when you're running commands. And these functions, they have their own API. So you can call that from other languages. So for example, if you look on the documentation, you're gonna see that you can use some Java, from shell script, and there, if I'm not wrong, it's been developed to be used also from JavaScript. And here we are going to use from Python. Among the other functionalities that we have, we can work, call in this program from this using the Open Automation utilities. We can do manipulation with data sets, working with Jest, getting console, getting the concatenation of our system. Just to exemplify here. For example, when you are looking for a string, for a word in your data set, and you do the search for, so you can, for example, use a grep command with data sets, and you pass just the high-level qualifier you would like to search for expression. You can work with APFs, and this is something that we are going to use here. So if you are not from Z, and if you are new to that, so we are talking about authorized programming facility. So some programs have a high level of authorization, so it can access more details in memory. You can cross memory. So we are going to work with APF here and other functions. If you'd like to know more about the Open Automation utilities, I left here also a link where you can see more details about that. I have some demos doing that, so feel free to access that. So let's get started touching a bit of code now. So starting with a hello world here, just to if you are new to Python, just for you to understand what we were talking. And here I have what you are seeing is my VS Code. I'm connected to my LPAR using the Zoe Explorer. And all that I'm coding here, it's happening inside of UFS site. So I'm doing that on my LPAR. I have here two terminals where one is inside of the LPAR through an SSH connection, and the other on the right is from where I'm going to do the testing here for this piece of code. So to get started, we are going to create a Hello World API. So I'm importing Flask. It's a module that's available, and we can use that to facilitate this. So we are going to create this function, this app that's going to be exposed. We need to add a route for that. So this is how we find this function, the address of that. So it will be a hello world function that we are defining here, and we are just returning a text. So we are going to just add some text, some hello text here, just to return when we access that. So we're going to access that through an HTTP request. Okay, I saved that. This is saved inside of the LPAR, and I have to export some variables here just to be easier. So I will export the Flask app, so it's easier for me to just call that when I use the Python here on my terminal. And then I will use Python to interpret using this module Flask and run that. So I receive here that it's running on my local host. And how I'm testing that, how I'm accessing this, this LPAR that I'm using, it's on a closed network, and I need to, for me to be able to access this address, I'm just using a tunnel of SSH forwarding the port 5000 to my local 5000. So this is how I'm gonna access that. Okay, so to try this, I will use a curl, so I can do this this call to this API we've just created, and we are expecting to receive something. We are doing a GET request here. So there are other kinds of requests. We are focusing in this just with the gadget to return something. Uh, just for you to understand, it will be familiar like you just open your browser, put this HTTP localhost, and will be the same result. It will return that text. So that's it. So this is a Hello World with just 5 lines of code. We have an API that we can access that. So this is what is an API. We have made something, created a function, and we're exposing that to be accessed from somewhere. So we could access that from our browser. We could access that from a mobile app, from the command line like we did here. So it's a services that is running on the ZOS, and we are just assessing that. And what we are going to code now, just to be using more functions and seeing how we can use Python with other pieces of the ZOS. So we are going to create an API. It will be running on the ZOS. It will be built on the ZOS. And this will be to manage APIs. So this is an example we were thinking where I use it to work because the APIs is something that is really critical for the system, right? You cannot just let there something exposed on the APIs that you don't need. So you need to take care of that. And we are going to create a service here that adds or removes a data set to the API. And we need to keep some log of that. So we know why that was added to API. We know if there's a ticket, we are going to register a ticket here. And we need this to be able, then we can use that, for example, to a web application or to a mobile application. So we are going to use that we are going to return the results in a JSON format. So this is a standard, the JSON, JavaScript object notation, that's used when we are talking about REST APIs. So we are returning the text format. So whatever is using this service, it can use no matter the language it's using. So we have a standard that can be accessed from different languages. So for example, we are creating this app in Python, but that doesn't mean that what will be accessing that needs to be in Python. It could be a web application written in JavaScript, React, any Swift, any other language. So again, I'm gonna get started with my VS Code. I will start the SSH connection here just to be able to issue and run Python inside of the LPAR, starting Bash. So let me go inside of the folder where this API is being created and export some functions here that I need here. So for example, determine this is because my Bash is not configured. So I'm exporting that just to be able to clear my string. And then I will start here with something that I haven't talked before, that is the source ZNV. So when we are working with Python, one good practice is to have a virtual environment. So this is what I'm doing here. This is I'm saying that this development environment that I'm using, it's based on this virtual environment. So this is the folder that I have here where the modules, for example, the Flask that I downloaded, it's there. And why we do that? Well, let's imagine you're, and this is, it should become, you are in a shared environment, other people are creating code, are using Python, are downloading other modules. And when someone downloads a module, may not be the same version that you have downloaded. So to don't impact on other users, we create this virtual environment, and we can then use that without the risk to impact others also. Know that we have the version that we were using. So we activate that, and now we see here that we have this VNV mark right before the build my user. So just to know that. So let me export the Flask app again, like we did in the Hello World. Okay. So I will create the directories, the structure of directories that we are going to be using here. So to organize, I will add the source code inside of these folders. The server and the controller. So the part responsible for the server and the part responsible for the functions that we are going to use, just to be organized. Okay, so let's get it started. And I will create a file here. So the instance.py. You see that everything that's happening is on the alpha. I save on my machine. I save there. It's the same experience that you were being if you were developing on your local machine. So I'm importing Flask, and this time I'm also importing this other module. This is to help it encapsulate some standards to help to create this REST API. So I'm gonna create here the server, and then to create that, I'm using a class now. I will pass some of the parameters for that, some attributes. So this app will be using Flask, like we did on before on Hello World. We are adding here to this Flask, and I will use an API, the module that we are using there, Flask HashX, to add to fill this documentation. So passing some attributes, so for example, the version. I will also pass here a title, so I know what is that. Description. So we are going to create an API to manage these APIs. And if I would like to have a documentation, so what will be the address of the documentation? And when we are talking about, so this is another function of this RESTX that is interesting because it adds Swagger documentation for us here, so it's interesting. Just formatting here the code to be beautiful. And I need to say, okay, to run this, what I'm running, what I'm calling. So I'm gonna inform that debug true because it's just testing. It will print some messages for me when I run this and when we are testing this here. Okay. So now we are creating an instance of this server. Okay, basically this is our server. So let's get started creating the functions we are going to work here. So the APS.py. So we are going to work with JSON. Remember, I told that we are returning to whoever is assessing that in the JSON format. We are also going to use some functions of Flask here, the RESTX also. And why we are splitting that? Just to be simple, just to be easier to maintain later on. So if someone is going to work here, it's easier to, okay, I need to do a change on the APF, so I'm going direct to the APF piece of code. So this is the reason. So we are going to use the datetime function to register the date the changes are happening. We are going to import Visual modules here. And we are going to use data sets and the system. So these are the two functions we are going to use here. So the data set, because in this example, we are registering, we are logging all the information inside of data set, and the system model to work with the APF. Okay, so we are going to import our server here that we have written in the other file. We are going to initiate these variables here. One thing that we need, what is the history data set that we are going to use? So instead of updating numbers place, I'm just placing here what is the data set, what is the data set name that I'm going to use. So it will be on a sequential file. And we are going to add our routes here. So the route for APF, this is where we need to access to work with our APS here on our program. And so we are going to create here the class that we are going to use for this route. And remember, I have spoken about on the Hello World that we were using the GET, but we have different methods when we are talking about HTTP requests. So here we are going to see other methods on this API, because one of the methods that we want to have is get the list of APIs that we have. Other that we are going to need here, we need to remove. So we are going to need a delete method, and we are going to have a way not just to get the information, but to add something. So we need to post a data for this API so we can work also here. So we are going to start having this get method defined. So this variable APF list response is the response that we are going to provide to the user, and will be in this JSON format. So I will use this JSON load to load all the APF lists that I'm getting with the system APF. And we are going to, this option that we are passing here, this OPT equal list, we are taking the list of APFs that are in the system. And this response for the command from the system is what we are going to format here on JSON to return. And that's it. So we return the APF list response. Now we are going to connect everything to start and have the server and the APF connected. So we are creating this main file where we are going to import them, so we can run everything from just one place. So we are going to import our instance from the server. We are going to import the APS controllers. And we are going to start this instance with the server run. Now let's just test it. So we are going to run that. And again, let's use the curl to test that. So I'm using the curl again to get this this list of APFs. So here's the address. You see that from our Hello World example, we have APF here at the end. So this is the route where the APF listing function is for the get. And I'm using a JSON tool from Python just to have it better displayed on my screen. So you see, this is how the list of APFs return. Now with this list, someone can just format that and display on the mobile or the web application. Okay, so let's clear and continue. Now let's get started creating our post route. So this is where we expect to send the data set to be added to our APF. So here's the variable that will receive that. So it will come from the payload. And this is the data set. This is the variable that we are going to send. We are also going to send a ticket number. So if someone would like to do some changes, they will need to have this ticket number just to formalize, just to have everything documented. The variable today, so we can just take the current date when the change is happening. And let's format everything. So using the ticket number, I will use this functional just to justify the amount of characters that we need. So it's something with less or more, just to be everything aligned when we record that. Also, we pass here the data set to be APF, the ticket number, the date. And other thing that we are going to use is the today option. So this is our variable, and at the end, I will use this letter just to be on the record that this is an add function, not just a delete. So we can differentiate and use the same format no matter if we are adding or deleting. We just change this character. Okay, so now we are going to use the datasets function. This is from Zoal. So to write something inside of our dataset. And so here we are passing the string that we are going to write. So using the history dataset and what is the member where I'm writing that. And what information we want to have written. So we are passing the new line variable that we have just formatted above. And this option append equal true. So we are not just removing everything and scratching this documentation. We are adding at the end always. So we are adding these lines when we are doing that executing this function. Okay. Then we are going to use the APF function. So we are taking here this example. So the response will be the result of our APF execution. But for now, let's just let it just to try it. We return to that at the end. Okay. I will create another route here. This is you can just to exemplify other ways that we can pass the information. See, on the example above, when we were using this, when we are passing information for this API, we are using on the post payload. So the information when we are going to call that needs to be on a JSON format, and we are going to pass in data. Here, we are passing the information on the URL that we are calling. So this endpoint will be the address or where this API is running, /APF, and / here we are passing the data set and ticket. So this on this delete function, this is from where we are taking the data to remove. So instead of passing through the body, we are passing through the URL we are calling. So this will be the class delete APF. Let's define the function to delete, the function from this method, delete. And we are passing to be using their data set of tickets that are coming from the request. So the data set should be listed, remove it, and this comes from our data set. The ticket number, again, will come from this ticket. Let's also use the date when the change is happening. Same formula we did above. Let's use this. Okay, so here we change the string to D, so we know that this is a deletion and the other is an add. So this here is standardized how you're recording that. We have the write, which if you so all, and we have also the return. We need to return a response for the user to handle on the front end. That's calling this. So save it. Let's get started testing. I know we're gonna see some errors here on the first time, but let's get started testing this. We're running. When we call the get, that still works. If we call now the delete, and here we can see how we are doing that. We pass using the delete. We are passing the address we are going to use. So like we saw before, we have the address from where the server is running, this /APF. The next part here is the dataset name and the ticket number. So let's see if that's working. Oops. Yeah, so there is a mistake here because we have used a different name when we just copied. We have forgotten to just date. So let's run again, continue testing. And there you go. So the delete is it's working. What it has to oh yeah, we for now we are not using the API functions to add that. So the list that return was the same. So let's add here what I have forgotten. There's a system API. So we are going to use here, and instead of the opt list that we have used before, we are going to use the del. So this is to remove, pass the DS name. So what is the data set to be removed? Let's add this already here above because we are going to need that later. So opt list and data set to be added. Okay, yes. So now when we are talking about the APF, this data set can be this is critical, right? So it's another factor that we have to ensure that is the data set that we allowed. So sometimes we force the volume where the data set is, so it needs to be that one. Sometimes it's SMS managed. So we have just passed it here, and for this purpose, we are just passing that SMS equal true. We could pass here on this parameter the volume also. But so let's save and continue testing. Let's see here. Okay, so internal. Oh, what else we have? Let's see. So data set to be removed. Oh, this C thing is not defined. Yeah, I forgot just a typo here. So let's continue. Let's try again. Oh, calling that. Yeah, this time it worked, and the data sets were removed from the list. Let's try the add, and here, look, we have seen already the get where we just passed the address. We have seen the remove where we pass the data, the ticket, the data set, the ticket inside of the URL. And here we are passing in JSON format. So we are using this flag D and passing the JSON where we have a key and pair. So we have a key and content, so for example, the data set, the ticket. The data set should be APF. Yeah, another typo. So APF, not data set, should be added. Let's fix that. Okay, let's save. And try again. I forgot to stop here the app, so start it again. Let's try. And there you go. So we have here the data set added. And if we look here, I'm using Zoo Explorer, I would check this APF history. So here are the tests we have been doing here, or we were doing. So this is the PDS inside of my bar. Let's add something different here. So change the ticket number just for us to see that happening. Let me refresh here. Pulling the data from everything again. And there we go. The new test that we just did. So that's working. And that's it. So the idea was that just to show with just a basic knowledge about all these things, how we could get started with Python, creating an API, a modern app on RZOS, showing the experience that is really the same, that if I'm working in whatever platform, doesn't matter. The experience is the same. So this is something that needs to be understood from modernization. Some people just think about modernization as leaving but no, we have a lot of options about modernization when we are talking about the and here we are talking about using modern languages. Let's say modern, but Python is there for over 20 years. But you have everything inside here. You just need to get used to it. When we do that, you have a lot of resources that you can take advantage on the web, from the community, so everything. And here's the link to evaluate the session. So please help me to improve. And I hope to be with all of you again next year on the next GSE. So this is the code for my session, the 6AE. Let your feedback there. And I think we have some time for questions. Do you have any questions on the chat? I couldn't follow that.
No questions. No questions so far, Bill. Thank you very much. Yeah, so what I'd say to any of the remaining attendees, if you have anything you want to ask, pop them into the chat, or if you want to ask directly, just pop your name into the chat and I can unmute you. So anybody got any questions for Bill? And just a reminder, this was session 6AE for any feedback that you can do through the website. So no questions, Bill. Thank you. Very inspiring to see Python being written real world there and using some of the automation tools. So thank you very much for your contribution, Bill. Appreciate it. And to all the attendees, have a great GSE. Thank you.
Thanks all. Bye.